The film opened on the Comet Observatory. Princess Rosalina is with her children, the Lumas, and sit down to tell them the story about Peach. But the little star wanna hear about Mario and Luigi. They are interrupted by a giant robot called Megalech, piloted by Bowser Jr. and Kamek. Rosalina used her wand to bring down Megalech, but it starts to go after the Lumas. She defends her children, but is captured by Jr. along with a little yellow Luma. Mario and Luigi ride their motorcycle to Sand Kingdom town of Rosalina, where the little skeleton residents say there is a disturbance in the place. The brother investigate pyramid, use fire flowers, and meet a dinosaur creature named Yoshi, who was hatched in Brooklyn but escaped through a war pips after people tired to capture him. The brothers take a quick look into Yoshi and bring him back home with them. Junior take Rosalina captive to planet Bowser, where he's planned to harness the power to destroy the universe using a device called a Doomsday Machine. Rosalina muster up enough power to break her binds and free the Luma, sending it go to the find Peach, but Junior keeps Rosalina in a glass ball as her prison. In the Mushroom Kingdom, the brothers prepare to join the toast celebrate Peach's birthday. Mario is nervous about giving Peach a gift sign he has an obvious crush on her. He and Luigi go with Yoshi to the party and meet with Toast, who is not quite as taken by Yoshi. Mario joins Peach on the roof as they tell him that it's not her birthday, but rather the day that the Toast found her and took her in. He gives her the gift, which is a parasol that she enjoys. The two were shooting stars, but when next one crashed into the forest. Peach and the brothers investigate and find the Luma sent to find her. After the Luma explains that Rosalina has been captured, Peach and Toast head to the Gateway Galaxy to rescue her. Even though that all the Toast think is a dangerous mission, she leaves Mario and Luigi in charge of a Mushroom Kingdom. They spend the day taking care of things for the Toast with help from Yoshi, leaving them tired until there is one more thing to take care of. Bowser has been copied with behind Tiny by painting and trying to cope with his anger issues. The brothers pay him a visit as he shows artwork of himself, looking both naked to Peach. The castle is then attacked by Junior, who seeks to free his father. He wets his magic paintbrush westbound, allowing him to take Mario and Luigi.
And I'm gonna be
Junior nearly succeeds in taking the castle with him, but the brother casts the Megalech to crash into the ship, dropping the castle back down to the crown another planet in the Honey Hill Galaxy. Bowser tricks Mario into hitting him to the effect of the blue mushroom can wear off and he can crawl back to normal size. Bowser thinks that he was a bad father to Junior, but after Mario says that he went to recall his dad, the Koopa King tells the brother that he will try to talk his son out of his evil plans. They journey to the kingdom of the Honey Queen, who is displeased with the damage and castle Racing has left, but Bowser offers to turn himself in for work so that Mario, Luigi, and Yoshi not long into his labo. Bowser is pulled into Johnny's ship. Peach and Toast make it to the Gateway Galaxy, on point seeming an image of Rosalina. Peach experienced past flashback to right before she was sent to the Mushroom Kingdom, seemingly by Rosalina herself. Two staff is snapped by a chewing monkey and Yuki. The two chase it into the servers and come on a hidden casino run by a Toast gangster named Wart. He demands to know what he knows over Rosalina's whereabouts, but was seek his punishment on her and Toast. He used her parasol to fight them off and Toast donned a penguin suit to fight back. She then is a mushroom to crawl and intimidate Wart into telling her that Rosalina is being kept to Space Galaxy. After they leave, Wart gets angry and tired to get in touch with Junior. Junior catch up with his dad and so off Planet Bowser, something that they had discussed when Junior was little. Along with them coming up with the Boomsday machine, they are then contracted by Wart, who alert them about Peach. Peach and Toast try to find someone to take them to the Spectrum Galaxy, but nobody is willing to take the risk. They then meet Fox McCloud as a space pilot who got spirits from his crew after a series of missions. He agrees to take Peach and Toast to find Rosalina after they pay him, and they are quickly joined by Mario, Luigi, and Yoshi. The Bowser catch on the heroes trying to reach them. Bowser convinced Junior not to kill them, so Junior used a super scope to fire at Mario and Luigi, turning them into babies. While Fox secrets land into Ossifiles, Yoshi and Toad work to keep baby Mario and Luigi safe from a T-Rex before turning them back to normal. The heroes are then recalled by the Lumas, who were alerted to their location by Luigi. Meanwhile, Bowser is moved by Junior to return to villainy and command the Copa Army to victory. Bowser charged up the Boomsday machine using Rosalina's magic and start to drain her energy. The heroes make it to Planet Bowser and try to sneak past the Copas. Meanwhile, Peach reads the Luma's storybook, which helps her find out that she and Rosalina are sisters who can use their combined power for godness. Rosalina had to send Peach away to protect her.
Did her.
Mario and Peach make it through Junior's body therapy security system. They reach a bridge where Bowser tried to kill them by welding to assist. The hero jumps over him and Mario cuts the bridge and causes Bowser to fall into the lava below. They just turn him into Dry Bowser, the Skull King. With a powered up, Junior, the father and son, fight Mario until Luigi and Yoshi show up with power-up to help them. Luigi takes Junior's paintbrush and creates Mr. Game & Watch, who helps smash Bowser into Peach. Junior gets the brush back and summons the Granite Dragon, but it is him. Mario's power-up and smash through the dragon to recruit Junior. Rich finds Rosalina, but she is too weak to free himself. She convinces her sister to put her hand to the glass so that their powers can come together. It works, and Rosalina is frees. The power transforms Planet Bowser into a preacher and lets Primaplex. The heroes return to the Mushroom Kingdom, only for Mario and Luigi to hear the tale Peach that her castle was destroyed. With help from Rosalina and the Lumas, the castle is rebuilt. During their new unveiling ceremony, Peach kills Mario checks and he fails up to place a new flag with his signature Wahoo. Mid-credit scene, Fox ship is fixed up for him go to home after he takes the Bowsers to jail. The two been trying to escape, but they are caught by Lomali, who is now a security guard and stop them with how crappy she is. Post-credit scenes. Back on the Gateway Galaxy, the Yuki steal again from a Watal before getting poached out. The Watal thank this person who turned out to be Princess Disley.